content. Sports Radio 610. The Tiger, an Odyssey sports station.
This is a journey into sound.
Much as you try to bury it, the truth is out there.
The truth lives right here, Houston.
On this day, I see clearly.
Sports Radio 610 presents Area 45 with Bijani and Creighton.
Inbound to Uzan, back to Cryer. He'll walk it up. Clock running under 16 seconds as Cryer crosses the half-court line. Cryer staring at Will Richard. Hands it off now to Uzan. Uzan on the right-hand wing. Stops with 7 seconds. Gives it to Cryer. 6 seconds to go. 5 seconds to Sharp. Top of the key. Lost the dribble. He's got to pick it up. It's scooped up by Condon. Condon secures it. And Florida found a way. From 12 down to the school's third national championship in men's basketball. 65-63 the final. The Florida Gators are the national champions once again.
65-63 Florida over University of Houston. Not at all, PC, the outcome we wanted, but we're going to do a post-game show regardless. Sean Bijani, Patrick Creighton, Colin in for Chris Santiago tonight. We're taking you all the way up until 1 o'clock. If you would like to be a part of our post-game coverage, you can hit us up, 713-572-4610, 572-4610. You can call or text the Jim Adler Texas Hammer text line. Hit us up in YouTube. The chats are open. Twitter as well, at P. Creighton, the number 1, at Sean Bijani for myself. You got some great pre- and post-game coverage as part of Westwood One's coverage you heard on Sports Radio 610. If you were listening on the Odyssey app, we appreciate you. Smart. It's free. And now it is reaction time. I was totally looking forward to and expecting at various points tonight, PC, to be doing a happy recap. And I bought, eyed a bottle of champagne in our refrigerator down the hall. And I was like, you know what? That might come in handy later. I think we were all feeling that way when the Cougs were up 12 points, but not the case. Almost as miraculous as that 14-point comeback was against Duke a couple of nights ago, as improbable as that felt, if you'd watched that game throughout, if you just tuned it in late, and maybe you just saw the Cougs down 6 with 1 minute and 14 left to go in the ball game, to tonight having a 12-point lead and then still clinging to a 2-point advantage inside 2.5 minutes remaining off of the LJ Cryer tip-in, off of his own miss. As improbable as it was, PC, for the Cougs to have come back a couple of nights ago, it felt almost equally as improbable that they lose the lead and lose the game in the fashion that they did tonight. Unreal.
Tonight's a day I wish we were on satellite radio so I could just say all the words that I really want to say. Because
are we not in safe harbor?
90% of them start with F.
Does that not apply safe harbor time?
Yeah, I don't think it applies to our boss's acceptance of what we can and can't say during safe harbor. In fact, there was an email that said to if any of our callers were to use any magic words, that we would have to hit the dump button.
It said callers, didn't say host, did it?
And it did not, but I think the same applies. And they wouldn't be able to take any calls until the dump reset. But, I really just want to say a lot of bad words.
Yeah, I know.
And that last possession, I'm still angry.
Yeah.
Over the last possession because for all the years that we've watched just basketball, doesn't even matter what level, for a championship game and a final possession to tie or win, that might be the worst final possession I've ever seen in 52 years.
Yeah. That puts it into perspective. It's probably accurate. You don't remember the really awful ones unless it's your team. The first thing that I thought of was, 1983 the Lorenzo Charles game, the NC State game, where Elijah down there underneath the basket is, the 3 ball goes up and he watches
it's an air ball.
He watches it come down. Lorenzo Charles.
Playoff basketball is coming back.
There you go.
Hey, playoff basketball's coming back. Did you know that?
Jesus. Lorenzo Charles goes up to get it and dunk it home. I don't know the context of that game anymore. I mean, I was 1 year old when that happened, maybe if that. But
you want me to help you with the context of the game? There
was a lead in that game, too, that was blown by the University of Houston. And I'm just trying to think in my mind, I wonder what people like that lived through that watched that, witnessed that, like Akeem Olajuwon himself, who is in the stands tonight and is, 48 hours removed probably from being the happiest that he had been at a basketball game since one he played in, I would imagine, to witnessing just everything unravel almost like in slow motion for the last 3 minutes of that ball game. Maybe more, really. Because, you could draw up, like, we've seen, like, heartbreaking ways that teams lose games every single year in the Final Four or in the championship game or in the tournament in general, regular season even. But when it's your team, reference point, and, that you'd been so close to the mountaintop before, nearly, 40 some odd years ago, 42 years ago, to it happening again. It's just wild. It's wild. And I don't know if you'd like to call in 713-572-4610, 572-4610, and maybe add some perspective, some context, give your personal account of like a time in which you'd felt like this heartbroken, or if you recall that 1983 game, or if you recall another time in which you'd seen a game unravel like this for your team, especially the Cougs, or any game. As you said, PC, like, you'd never seen a game end like that. Like, that's the worst possible way you could end a basketball game. I don't know that I can disagree with that. 713-572-4610, 572-4610. Let's get out to Brent. You're on Area 45's H-Town postgame show. What's up, Brent?
Brent going once.
Make sure, Colin, you have the phones potted up. There you go. Brent, you with us?
Hey.
We got you. Maybe your phone's a little wonky. There we go.
Yes, sir. I'm right here with you. I'm so sorry that maybe I had my speaker in the background. Hey, I'm upset as a sports fan.
Your home for the Houston Texans and the NFL is right here. This is Houston's Sports Leader, 610.
We
got you, Brent.
Brent, just go ahead.
Thank you so much. Hey, so I'm upset as a Houston sports fan. It was very disappointing. Not only we go to the most anticlimactic ending of a moment like that, then I decided, hey, let's turn it over and let's watch the Astros. Let's see what's going on. We got shut down there. Why, as Houston sports fans, do we constantly have to be disappointed? I mean, it's one thing after another.
Hey, let's go Rockets.
But I knew.
Yeah, let's go Rockets.
Let's go Rockets.
That's all we got. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Is there anything to compare it to in the championship in this moment to what that poor guy has to live with the rest of his life? That moment where he just kind of slapped the ball down.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he had nowhere to go with it, right? I mean, the defender was already elevated before he could even get up to shoot the ball, so he was kind of stuck in no man's land. The entire second half, the Cougs stood around on offense. One guy had the ball, one guy set a screen, and 3 guys stood there with their thumbs in their asses. And that was the entire second half. The offense had no movement, nothing at all. He had nowhere to go with the basketball. And as evidenced by after he has to throw it down, does one of his teammates come running for the basketball?
Well, to make excuses in that moment, but that is such a WTF moment. You know, I have to imagine, like, the team was just caught off guard. Like, they'd not seen that. They didn't know what to do. You could tell he didn't know what to do. Like, can I touch it? Should I touch it? Oh, yeah, I can't touch it. Somebody's got to touch it. And then somebody came running across. I don't know who it was. Might have been Arsenault, maybe Wilson. But it didn't matter at that point in time. You know, Florida understood very well, you know, what was going on in that play. And that defender that made an absolute beeline towards Sharp. And Sharp, prior to him getting the ball, coming off of that Cryer action.
It was Creighton.
It was Creighton. He made a beeline to him, and Sharp did a great job of escaping him initially to get open. It was just, I would have to imagine, you know, Sharp thought, boy, you know, I left him in the dust, and he's going to have to get past Roberts, you know, to get to me way out here on the perimeter. He wasn't expecting that, and it was just one of those wonky plays that I don't know that you could really ever imagine, draw up again, Brent.
I agree, and it's one of those things as a Houston sports fan, like I wouldn't say we got to get used to it, but it's like,
no, you know, we're already.
Good Lord, man, let's get some parades going in this town for once.
I hear you.
We get.
But you know what, Brent? Hey. Like I have to say this, and I appreciate the phone call. Thanks for staying up late with us. I knew we were going to get like a comment like that, like you know, it's like the most Houston thing ever. But I can't say that it's not, because Houston, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, you name it, like we've seen disappointment after disappointment. Like, I'm 42 years old, and I've lived through a lot of it. You're a little bit older than me, and you've been through it with your New York teams and with the Houston teams now that since you've been down here,
you know what, you got
15 years.
Just major sports. I'm going to talk major sports.
Mm-hmm.
You got 2 Rockets titles from the 90s. You've got 2 Astros World Championships in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
You had a killer draft with the Texans that got you a franchise quarterback and a franchise edge rusher, and hopefully will lead them to a Super Bowl title in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
You've got a young Rockets team that has gone from 22 to 41 and now 52 and counting wins in successive seasons. This Cougs team had an incredible season that just ended in a very heartbreaking fashion. I mean, look, they had an incredible season. And this is very much a team that overcame other teams that were more talented on sheer will.
Yeah.
When we say toughest team won, they were the toughest team. They just were offensively challenged, like it seems almost every Cougs team is. And that offensive challenge ultimately, along with some questionable officiating, was their undoing.
Yeah.
You know, when it was 42-30, right? And Florida had just gotten whistled for like a handful of calls in a row.
3 in a row.
And I said to us, they just got 3 calls. It's going to go the other way. They're going to even those calls out.
Mm-hmm.
Over the next 9.5 minutes, the Gators erased a 12-point Cougar lead, where 11 of the 12 foul calls in that time were against the Cougs.
Yeah, it was wild.
I mean, that was obscenely one-sided for one team. Especially in a first half where they let the two teams beat the snot out of each other.
Yeah.
The first half was pro wrestling. No blood, no foul. All of a sudden, Cougars go up 12, and they breathe on a guy, and it's a foul.
Yeah, but you know, even after that, like after Florida had tied the ball game at 48, they got that tech, and there was the foul. And Cryer had the 2 free throws. Then Roberts had his 2 free throws. They ended up making 3 out of 4 combined. Like, from that point on, I felt like the refs let him play again. I felt like it was physical again. But for that little moment in time, when Florida went on an 18-6 run, where U of H got, as you said, whistled for 11 of 12 foul calls made in the course of that run. I don't know how many game minutes that ended up being. It felt like we went from 16-minute mark to 11-minute mark in like 30 minutes.
It was a 9.5-minute stretch where the Cougs were whistled for 11 fouls and Florida was whistled for 1.
And look,
and to give you an example of just how lopsided that the Cougs had 11 fouls in that 9.5 minutes, Florida was called for 11 fouls the entire game.
Sure. Yeah, I know. It's just wild. And I'm not going to sit up here and just point the finger and say it's all the ref's fault. But, those first 3 fouls that they whistled on U of H when they were up 12 and the lead was dwindling, they were soft as hell. They were soft calls. They were very easily, whistles that the refs could have swallowed and effectively did most of the first half and, the first few minutes of the second half. And, UH just has to be able to overcome that. A team on that stage, in that moment, in that game, win or go home, you've got to be able to overcome that. And I felt like they did, in terms of the officiating. Sure, Tugler fouled out. That one hurt. Francis was in foul trouble already. That was touchy. But you know what? I didn't feel like they let up as the game went on and got down to the nitty-gritty and played with any less physicality. It's just the turnovers and the shot selection and the fact that they did not get a shot up. They didn't even take a shot the final minute and a half of the game. After Cryer gets the tip in off of his own miss, it was nothing. In fact, you had 4 turnovers, 2 more fouls, and 0 shot attempts from the 129-minute mark on. And what's even worse is Florida didn't make a field goal nearly the final 3 minutes and 15 seconds, I think it was.
3:14, Florida didn't have a field goal.
That's wild. That is absolutely wild. And it's one of those things, like, you look, just isolate that, and you say, hey, UH holds Florida without a field goal for nearly 3.5 minutes to end a basketball game that is a one-possession game. Who wins that one? UH wins that one 9 times out of 10. This was that one time.
9 out of 14, UH from the foul line. 17 out of 21, Florida from the foul line. That's your game.
Yeah.
They are outscored by 8 points at the foul line. They lost by 2.
Yeah.
That's not your game.
I mean, yes, effectively it is. But you know what else is the game? This is a team effort. Kelvin Sampson said, something to the effect like, you can be disappointed in the loss, but don't be disappointed in the effort. I understand and I appreciate that message, but if you're going to point to the free throws, then I'm also going to raise you. How many point-blank shots did UH miss tonight in the paint? And I'm not just going to point at Juwan Roberts. Now, he missed the bulk of them. But, Sharp missed some point-blank shots. Cryer missed some point-blank shots.
They did, but the real answer is they missed just as many as Florida did, who also missed point-blank shots in wide-open threes. Neither team could hit a basket tonight. No. In fact, Florida was 6 of 24 from behind the arc. The Cougs are 6 of 25.
Mm-hmm.
Cougs are 24 of 69 from the field. That's 34.8%. Florida was 21 of 53, 39.6%. These two teams could fall out of a boat and hit water.
Yeah.
It's just that was the kind of game it was. It was physical. It was defensive. There was a lot of physicality. But for a 9.5-minute stretch, all the foul calls went one direction, and it made up a 12-point difference.
Sure did.
And
it sure did.
There's no way to account for that. There is nothing that you can point to or bring up at any point in history where one team gets 11 out of 12 foul calls over a 9-minute stretch to erase a 12-point deficit. And there's no other way or equalizing or anything. Just, okay, the whole game, you can kick each other's asses, but for this 9 minutes, you, Team A, you can't touch Team B.
Yeah, it felt that way, didn't it? 713-572-4610. Let's get out to some phone calls. Steve from Spring, you're on Area 45. What's up, Steve?
Hey, didn't you both, I know you guys both noticed, Condon didn't get called for hardly any fouls to the face. He had his elbows all over the guys. It was just horrible. And I told these people, I said, they were sitting next to me, I said, they need to drive to the basket, drive to the basket, drive to the basket. Yep. And they didn't drive to the basket. They tried to be a hero. And I fault Sampson for trying to go for the 3 at the end of the game instead of just driving, going for the 2 and tying it. That's what cost them that. They couldn't drive. They were tentative. They had let Florida take it to them just like they took it to Duke. Would you agree on that point?
I would. And I was telling PC the same thing. You know, they need basket. Even when they were up 12. I wanted them to slow it down, and PC kept saying the same thing. You know, slow it down, slow the pace down. That's fine, but you need to attack the basket because it was at that point in time where Florida had been whistled for 3 straight fouls, right? And it felt like you had them right where you wanted them. And there was an opportunity to step on the throat, I'd felt like. But UH was just so almost anxious, like, when they got the ball offensively. And, you know, we'd faulted them a couple of games ago, PC. I don't know if you remember this, but for the way that they'd slowed the pace down, I think it was in the Big 12 championship game. You know, they'd slowed the pace down, and they allowed, God, I can't even remember who they were playing now, but they allowed the opponent to come back and make it a closer game than it really should have been. And they were playing keep away. They'd completely, you know, stolen the momentum away from themselves because they'd slowed it down so much. They took their foot off the gas. You have to, there's a fine balance there. You don't need to necessarily take your foot off the gas in terms of like being overall aggressive, but in terms of controlling the pace, they'd controlled the pace. I felt like the last 3 ball games that they've played, whether it be Tennessee, Duke, or Florida tonight, they played at the pace that they wanted to play.
When you want to talk about Houston sports, 12, you can with Houston's local sports leader, Sports Radio 610.
Experiencing technical problems. It's 1 o'clock in the morning or 11:30 at night.
Yeah,
train of thought.
Some automatic fires, and you know, Colin doesn't normally work in this studio, so he's not aware of what's going to automatically fire and when.
There are demons right
now, and it just shoots itself off. Plus, as you guys have known, we talked about it last week. Every one of our servers crashed last week. A few have been rebuilt, not all of them. We don't have access to a lot of our things. So right now there's a few ghosts in the machine.
Demons.
So I apologize if every now and then something just shoots itself off out of nowhere. It's not something we can control. I apologize because we're a little off hour right now. So there are things that are automatically programmed because normally we are in automated programming right now. So
and it wants to go back to automation.
There's just a few things that we're not necessarily able to control right now because we don't have access to all of our systems. So apologize for that.
All right. So we have somebody on the technical crap. Train of thought. I don't remember what I was doing. So let's go to Paul because we have phone calls to work in. What in the world?
Hey, this is some great hold music, Paul.
Hold on. Keep it here. Paul from Houston. We are listening to...
Who has hold music on their cell phone?
This person has called in.
And it's like
we
really
put them on hold,
music.
And then now they have put us on hold. This is interesting.
Let's just go back to them later on and see if it's still there.
Yeah, we'll try that. All right, Paul from Houston, line 3.
Break here. We'll get to more of your phone calls on the other side. 713-572-4610. We'll get some more of your calls on the other side. Heartbreaking way for a great Coug season to come to an end in the title game, 65-63 to the Florida Gators. We'll get to your calls on the other side.
Texans GM Nick Cassell. 45 with Bijani and Creighton is proudly presented by Viking Carpet One Floor and Home Outlet. Call or text 281-907-6444 for all of your flooring needs. Sports Radio 610 presents Area 45 with Bijani and Creighton.
Try to find some room. Gives it off. Cryer gets it right back with 5 to shoot against Houck. Crossing him over. Gets past him on the drive. Shot won't go. Tip is there by Cryer. Somehow he batted it up and in off his own miss. And it's 62-60 Houston.
Love the fact that Cryer did not settle there. And how about he knew that was off and just got that quick tip up.
Houck on the drive. Backs it out.
All right, so Cougs lose tonight 65-63. That was the L.J. Cryer tip-in off of his own miss. That was the last time UH made a field goal. That was at the 2:29 mark. Beyond that, Houston just took 2 shots from that point on, turned it over 4 times, committed a couple of fouls. That was Tugler and Milos Uzan, and 0 shot attempts. From that, absolutely heartbreaking, especially the one possession that you needed a shot on. You and I were going back and forth, PC, like, well, are they going to go for the win here? The way that they initially brought the ball up, it was, looked like they were going to take this thing all the way down and set up a play to get themselves a 3, and it was going to be win or go home. Screw overtime. And then as you kind of saw the play kind of develop when Cryer had the ball on the right side, I thought, oh boy, maybe they look to, beat somebody off the dribble, get to the rack, create a little contact, maybe take this thing to the foul line. But Sharp just made a beeline to the top of the key. They found him, and unfortunately, who was that? Edwards that followed him and just sprinted him down, got in the air, and prevented Sharp, intimidated Sharp.
That was Clayton.
Clayton. Intimidated Clayton, God bless him.
Clayton had got
intimidated Sharp so much to where he just bounces the ball, and if he touches it, it's double dribble and it's ball game over anyway.
See, he had gotten the ball and just was ready to fire, and he got into a shooting motion and started to, leave his feet. But Clayton had gotten a running start and a huge leap, and Sharp from where he was got outleapt by Clayton. He couldn't get the shot off, so all he could do was throw it on the ground and hope one of his teammates would come and grab it. He boxed out Clayton right there in front of the ball. He didn't have a teammate to get the ball in time.
No. 713-572-46. Call in. Talk about the game. Maybe get your frustrations out of your chest. Do it cleanly, though, on the phone lines. If you need to cuss, just do it on the text line. 713-572-4610. Call or text the Jim Adler Texas Hammer text line. Hopefully, we don't have any more, interruptions with technical crap. Maybe that's fixed. Maybe it's not. We'll figure it out. We got an hour and change to do that. Let's get out to Mike on the west side. You're on Area 45. What's up, Mike?
West side, best side.
West side, best side. How you doing, Mr. PC?
I'm pretty ticked off.
Yeah, you ain't lying. How you doing, Mr. Bijani?
Same, if you could imagine.
Yeah. Oh no, I can already imagine, man.
One of us went to UH, so you can imagine that one's probably even more ticked off than the other one.
Oh no, there's steam coming out the ears already.
I'm trying to laugh and keep from crying and really breaking something at this point. Yeah.
No, the breaking part, I can understand that. And look, PC man, I have to agree with you because I believe because I was listening to the game on 610. So the thing about it is I listen to the the stats. They run down all the stats at the end of the game and everything. So the thing about it is. I think they said there was like 16 fouls on Houston in the second half, man, if I'm correct. Man, how you expect somebody to win a game when there's 16 fouls on one team, man? Like, hey, did we just get rid of Laramie Tunsil? I thought we was done with all that, man.
It was a second half ref show, right? They called 4 fouls. They called 4 fouls total in the first half. You could clothesline guys. You could kick them in the back. You could punch them in the head. Anything you want in the first half, and it was good to go. In the second half, for a 9.5-minute stretch, damn near every possession Florida had, there was a foul on a Cougs.
Oh, yes. Exactly. And then Bijani too, man, I'm with you too, man. And this is another thing I don't understand about being a Houston sports fan that I have been all my life. I do not understand why we can't, just like you, man, you took the words right out of my mouth. When I got that foot on the neck, man, why you can't just go and stomp down a little harder and choke the breath out of them, man?
Yeah.
You know, I feel like it did. I mean, you led the whole game, man, all the way till the end, man. And then what happened, man?
Well,
what happened was,
keep it in perspective.
Whistle, foul.
Keep it in perspective.
Foul.
How did Duke talk about the game a couple of days ago? You know, because they're sitting there after the game and the next day saying, "How the hell did we let this happen? We blew a 14-point lead. We blew the biggest lead in Final Four history and allowed the Houston Cougars to do that." They're saying the same thing that Houston fans are and we are right now. A little different. Every game is not created equal, but I think you know, that's unfortunately, you know, sport, and for only one side in a win or go home game like this, does it feel really good? Do you feel like there's vindication? Do you feel like there's euphoria? And then on our side, it feels like a gut punch. It feels like you got screwed. It feels like it was, the referee show in the second half for a 9.5-minute mark, as you said. I saw somebody put up on Twitter, awful announcing. It was like, here are the MVPs of the championship game. And it's like a snapshot of the referees doing review. You know?
On Barstool Sports, what the refs did in the second half of the national title game is a crime to basketball everywhere.
Yeah. You know what? It's a crime that cannot be righted. You know, it's over. There's no going back. You can't fix this. You can't go back and you can't fix 1983. You can't fix this one in 2025. You got to live with it. And unfortunately, you know, this is going to be one of those games next year in the tournament, right after they play the highlight reel of a game going into the Sweet 16 or an Elite 8 or a Final Four. They're going to show like, hey, largest comeback in Final Four history. The University of Houston Cougars over Duke. And then, lead in the national title game and allowed Florida to win their third championship in school history.
The Florida Zebras.
713-572-4610, 572-4610. Marwin, you're on Area 45. What's up, Marwin?
Oh, man, it's just hard. Real hard.
That was excellent self-editing, man. I'm really proud of you, Marwin.
I watched every game this year. You know, I was in the process of rebuilding my house in East Matagorda from Burrell, so I'm displaced in an apartment in Lake Jackson where I lived 18 years ago. Yeah, and then I'm getting there, but it's tough, and you know, where they didn't really tell us the truth about the storm, where it came in at a strong 3 and still saying 1 to this day, but that's okay. You know, they didn't get it right. My buddies at Dow let me know what the wind speeds were. It's their job to do that, but it just, you know, I just felt like, you know, where we didn't went through stretches where we were winning, the people would say winning ugly, wasn't covering spreads, but we were winning, you know, and to have that largest, you know, 33-game homestand, and then we go out and wear some funky, Carolina blue colors and let Texas Tech come in and win an overtime game. You know, what really got me was a bunch of the analysts that didn't give us enough credit, kept saying Auburn was the best defense, Florida was the best defense. Truth of the matter is, game in, game out, the Cougs were the best defense. But in any given game, if they play this team 6 times, it could probably go 3-3. They were mirror images, but y'all hit the nail on the head. Not to get a shot up would do something I mean, the other, they say, well, maybe the Final Four took it out of them, and the championship games are and all that. There's an old saying in Houston. I know it took me a long time from when my grandfather used to take us out there by finger furniture and watch the Houston Buffs and Colt 45s, and now I'm telling on myself. But how long it took to get that one in 17, and then it was somewhat tarnished with the Astros. But the only box we needed to check in basketball, from Rockets, Cougars, whoever that counts, is to get that national championship. And I felt like tonight would have been the night, but it just it goes down to what I said. If you ain't living on the edge, you ain't living in Houston. It's not a good place to watch sports if you got a bad heart. So it's just been the thing. But
hey,
I mean, I'm sure Drexel, I'm sure Elijah Wan, Michael Young, all of them, they're like, just not again. But,
Marlon, let me ask you a question, man, because you sound like a guy that has, lived and died many lives with Houston sports over the years. I don't know if you heard the beginning part of the show, but my first thought was 1983. I was one then. All right. I didn't watch the game, but I've seen the highlights a billion times in my lifetime. And I know what happened in that game. And if you recall that at all, and then you watch tonight,
I do.
From a University of Houston Cougar basketball program standpoint, which one's worse? Which one just did you feel like you just got kicked in the nuts?
Both. Tonight, but it's just to blow. I mean, not blow, but I mean, we've always let people come back in, but somehow or another we scratched and crawled with the gut, to be able to do this. But with Elijah One standing there being young, and of course we saw what Elijah One became after that. But just to have it to happen the same way. I mean, God, and Kelvin he'll never sit there and say, 11 fouls to so many, and even with Francis getting slapped in the face and he gets the foul, it's straight up. It just that I never was one to blame it on officiating, but man, how can you let them play in one half one way and then not the other? But I'm not saying we didn't get it up. We didn't get the inbound pass to where it was clean enough to where Sharp, I guess, could get out of the trap and figure out a way to get it to an open man. But what I felt like, guys, here's what I'm going to say. I felt like they went to Roberts and I know he's a 6-year senior. I get it, and they one of the favorites of Sampson, but they went to him a bit much, and the guys who we relied on to get those shots up, and they made some, but they just couldn't get in that rhythm. I felt like, that they just, that from Uzant and Cryer and Sharp, they could have knocked down some more. We've seen them do it in the tournament, and we just went inside a little bit much, I think.
You know what, Marlon?
Getting a little cute.
You know what, Marlon? Sharp, we know can shoot it. Cryer, we know can shoot it. But I didn't even like the shot selection they had in the Duke game. I thought they escaped death in that game alone because they were still able to create offense with their defense and make some things happen in transition, go to the rack, create contact, get to the free throw line. Tonight, when they're up 12, they had not, shot the ball well to that point, but it was just kind of chisel away. You slow it down, get to the basket, create contact, and you force the issue. They had still been whistled, Florida had, for 3 straight fouls. In a span of, I think, 7 straight possessions where the Cougars had scored, and then after the technical foul, and in the foul as well, where L.J. Cryer and Roberts had free throws, U of H still scored on their next 5 possessions. And then it was a dry spell. But they'd scored because they'd created contact. It wasn't just Sharp shooting threes and Cryer shooting threes. They were getting to the basket. I thought you need to keep going to Juwan Roberts, but you have to have those secondary and that third guy attack the basket and create second chance opportunities. And they weren't able to do that. As much as people thought Duke was going to control the boards last game on Saturday, and that big tall fella, the one that Duarte couldn't pronounce his name, and I'm struggling pronouncing it as well. Number 0, I think it was.
Malak,
something like that. He didn't have a board. He didn't have a rebound.
Only 7'2".
But he played really good defense. He changed some shots, but he didn't have a board. relentless on the glass. And I thought they tried to be. Just Florida was better. People were coming into this game talking about how good of a rebounding team Florida was, how good their perimeter defense was. And you saw both of those things tonight.
And they were dead even on the boards, 40-39.
But U of H just didn't. You said it all game.
UH got more on the offensive glass.
They didn't move the ball. They did not move
the ball on offense. I mean, UH had 5 assists tonight. That's how poor the ball movement was. They went to ISO on almost 50% of their plays, and some of their points were scored on putbacks. They missed a ton of wide open shots, and look, it was just a bad It was a bad offensive night for both teams.
Yeah,
but the foul line discrepancy winds up being the difference. For 9.5 minutes, the Cougs couldn't play defense because they weren't allowed to.
Marwin, thank you for the phone call, man. Good talking some ball with you. Whether it be, a win or a loss, always good to talk some ball with you guys. That's why we're here. 713-572-4610, 572-4610. You can call or text the Jim Adler Texas Hammer text line. Patrick Creighton, Sean Bijani, Colin producing in for Chris tonight. We have 1 hour left. We are taking you until 1 a.m. this morning. We were going to do it, win or lose. So another hour, Area 45, H-Town post-game show coming up. And coming up next, I want to get to something that Marwin actually brought up in his phone call in regards to the Houston Cougars and what impact that Duke game might have had on tonight's. We'll discuss next.
What's been Nick Casario's Your home of the Houston.
Touchdown, Houston.
Houston sports leader. Sports Radio 610, an Odyssey sports station. Sports Radio 610 presents Area 45 with Bijani and Creighton.
All right, Area 45's H-Town post-game show rolling along, taking you up until 1 a.m. Sean Bijani, that is me. He is him. Patrick producing. We'll have some stuff from head coach Kelvin Sampson here pretty soon. He's spoken with members of the media this evening after the 65-63 loss. Houston to Florida this evening. Florida winning its third national championship in program history, while U of H, just looking on the screen now, 0-3 in national championship games. 83, 84, of course, and you can add 2025 to that, unfortunately. If you'd like to be a part of the show, 713-572-4610. It's for you. It really ain't for us. I mean, it's cool to get our stuff off our chest, but if you want to get your frustrations off of your chest, you can do that as well. Call or text 713-572-4610. Marwin said something on his phone call last segment, just kind of in passing. He was like, I don't know if Saturday's, emotional win had anything to do with tonight. I was actually thinking about that. And if I didn't believe what I did about the Houston Cougar basketball team this year, and I think I would have said the same thing about it in each of the last 3 seasons. But I don't think it had a negative impact coming into tonight's game. And I think I feel as strongly about that, mainly because, you know what? Florida had gone through a pretty tough tournament themselves. Florida had played in a pretty tight game in the Final Four to get to the championship game. And if they had not, if maybe Florida would have cruised beyond Auburn like Houston cruised past Tennessee in the Elite Eight, maybe I feel slightly differently, but I don't know that I would, because Houston is so mature and battle-tested, and they'd won these types of games before. They've lost these types of games before, certainly over the last, couple of 3 years. They haven't gone undefeated every year. They've lost some tough ones. More times than not, they've wound up on top, but I didn't think like that game was so emotional, like they were going to come into tonight like emotionally drained or just mentally drained or, just tired, even physically. I never thought that way. And it's mainly because of, we know how tough this team is coached and how they're prepared. And it comes to light for the nation ahead of a game like this and in the midst of a game like this for people that don't know U of H, but we spend all basketball season hearing about it, talking about it. So for all of those reasons, because of what we know about Coach Sampson and how he has, created this program and nurtured it, and the culture that he has in terms of, you heard it how many times tonight? Probably 3 or 4 times tonight. Do the things in the darkness, do things when nobody else is doing them so you can execute them when everybody's around. Something to that. That's why I didn't feel like there was going to be any negative emotional carryover coming into tonight's game. 713-572-4610. 572-4610 is the number to get in. Let's get out to
Hosea
from Houston. What's up, Hosea?
Yes, I was watching the game tonight. I thought that the game was lost, started from the 12-minute mark on in the fourth quarter when they brought the point guard off the bench and put Pry, I guess, down there as the shooter. I even heard the announcer say, why is this guy stopping his dribble before we come over half court? And I thought that took him out of the offense. And I believe if they left Pry at point guard, I believe we would have a different story tonight. And they allowed Florida to trap them most of the time when they would bring the ball over the half court instead of pushing it. And I believe that was the problem. Plus, I think Samson got out coached tonight.
That's not, that's not a terrible observation. I don't
It's not the way they play all year. They are not a run-and-gun team. They are not going to push the ball up the court all the time. That's not how they play. They haven't played like that all year. You can't ask a team to suddenly do something different offensively they haven't done all year. I understand what he's trying to say about, hey, you know what, the way that you can beat that pressure is, hey, put some pressure on them and push the basketball up. The problem is you're pushing the basketball up, not designed for that. You watch that offense all game long. One guy has the ball, one guy sets a screen, three guys stand around with their thumbs in their asses. And that's literally their offense tonight.
Yeah, but
the
you
whole
gotta
damn
adjust.
game. And that's what they do. But they weren't adjusting.
No,
and
but
if
you had
you
to
were
figure out a way to adjust because
you saw what happened when Cryer would try to just take the ball. Then all of a sudden he's being guarded by three guys, and ball gets slapped away, knocked out of bounds. Like you're not the other guys on the team in the moment were not capable. We're not aware enough to adjust to, hey, we're going to get dribble penetration. We need to move from our spots.
I thought Florida, I remember that instance that the caller was talking about. Sharp was bringing the ball up, and he stops his dribble. And, Florida would pressure the ball almost as soon as it got beyond midcourt, like to stop what the Cougars wanted to do short of them getting into their set. They wanted to push them way out on top of the perimeter and lessen the area in which they had to defend.
Literally what they did on the final possession.
And they did such a really good job of that, at stretches tonight. But I felt like Houston was able to beat that more times than not because they applied pressure. They weren't picking up their dribble. And if they had, they passed out quick. And if you're being doubled and you pass out of that, well, they've got to be able to switch. If you create as much chaos on offense as you do on defense, then I thought U of H was certainly the better team tonight. But Florida had figured something out. And I think it was probably something to do with that personnel grouping. I don't disagree with what Hosea was saying. If Cryer, in my opinion, does bring the ball up, he's a better ball handler than Sharp. And I think he can get out of trouble and beat guys off the dribble. You've seen how quick he is. Sampson talked about it before the game tonight. The guy's only 6'1", and he's a short 6'1", but he can use his quickness against the opposition, and that's how he's able to create some mismatches when physically he's really not supposed to be able to do that. And maybe Sampson, in that regard, got out coached. But
this is a team that all year long was a really, even though they would go through stretches offensively where they didn't score, season long, this was a good 3-point shooting team.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't hit a
very
three.
Good, very good.
They could not hit a three. And look, as you got towards the end of the game, they knew they couldn't hit threes. They had to find other ways to get offense, and they really struggled to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not enough movement in their offensive sets for them to do things if they don't hit shots.
Yeah, that was definitally lacking tonight. 7-1-3.
Think about the way Florida ran their offense, particularly during stretches where they were having success. To anticipate where the Cougs' help was going to come from, and they made an extra pass to a cutting big who would always be open because that big came from the side where the extra help came. He was the guy who got left open. That guy would cut to the basket and get a bunny or a dunk, and we saw that happen plenty of times in the first half, plenty of times in the second half. I mean, you had 12 points for Condon. He didn't score in the last game. He didn't score at all. He had 12 points.
Oh, well, Condon was the guy that kept getting open in the lane. That was just so frustrating.
Always open.
Yeah. Roberts was a little late coming over. Francis was a little late coming over. Or Tugler, when he was in before he'd gotten fouled out in the first half. Like, they were just getting boxed. And, when they were letting him play, it wasn't just getting boxed. They were getting, the wraparound. Condon just had them kind of pinned, and there was nothing they could do about it. And when they'd go to help, he would just sink down to the basket. They'd lob it over to him, and it almost felt like they could get that anytime they'd wanted. And I found myself, anticipating Florida looking for Condon every single time down the floor, and why they didn't is beyond me. Florida fan had to be just as frustrated. Like, why don't you just continue to go to Condon and milk that until it runs dry? Just as I was like, man, put your head down and go to the basket. Like, this is really 2 games in a row where you link from the outside. And look, they weren't bad shots. Sharp, Cryer, a lot of them. Yes, some of them were tough. Some of them were deep. But not a lot of the ones that were uncontested were bad shots. They went down and came back out. And, hey, look, sometimes your shot's not falling. Put your head down. You know the refs are letting you play, but you also know that Florida's being extra physical tonight. And they've drawn 2 technicals. At the time, you still had a lead in this game. Put your head down, get to the basket, create contact, force the issue until they stop it.
They're 2 teams that are very guard-oriented, and they don't play inside-out basketball. But that's where Florida had their success.
Yeah.
Was going inside.
Yeah,
and for the Cougs, man, nobody could step up and give Cryer the help. Cryer had 19 points. And, I mean, he didn't shoot great. He shot 6 of 18. He was 4-11 from deep. But he had 4 of their 6 3-pointers. And the rest of the team was 2 of 14 from 3, with Sharp being 1 of 7 and Uzan being 0 of 4. And those are the 2 other guys that make threes on this team. And they couldn't hit any.
Yeah, that was tough, man. 713-572-4610, 572-4610. Prince from Spring, you're on Area 45. What's up, Prince?
Hey there. Well, I was scared of Florida. I didn't want to have to play Florida. And, not to say I didn't think we could win, but I knew it would be flip a coin kind of thing. Losing Florida. But the goaltending in the first half just kills me because in the Texas Tech-Florida game, there was a goaltend, and they changed the call. They actually awarded the points several minutes later. Why didn't that happen at halftime, after halftime?
No, they blew that call. They blew it. Look, we all saw the replay. They showed it plenty of times. They showed it in slow motion. Ball's clearly on the rim when it's touched. It was a goal.
Clearly. And I've seen it with the Rockets all the time where – in the NBA, where they look later. They let the game
NBA
go on.
The NBA will. And I thought the same thing.
Why doesn't the NCAA do that?
I don't know.
If Florida had lost like we lost tonight, that would have been a bulk of the conversation. They went over analyzing the game at the very end, the highlights, all those guys that were all in bed with Duke and Florida and everybody else but us, and they didn't even mention it. Didn't even mention the goaltend. Blew right through it.
Yeah.
It's a disgrace, and it's a disservice to everyone,
No, you're right.
Even Florida
not
playing
wrong.
fans. I wouldn't even want to see it happen to them.
No, you're not wrong, Prince. But you know this to be
We
true
made
as
a
well.
mistake.
Like as bad as that call was, as bad as that no call was, you had a 12-point lead, and you had a lead inside 2.5 minutes, and it was execution. When you isolate that last 3 minutes in and of itself, and you see 4 turnovers, 2 fouls, 0 shot attempts, and
bad, terrible.
Yeah, what are you going to do? I almost felt like at that point in time, you know what? Give the Cougs, and Florida's still going to figure out a way to execute. You could look, this isn't everything, but you watch that Duke game, you could look at Duke and you could see the look of defeat on all of their faces. You could look at U of H tonight in the last 3 minutes, and it wasn't a look of defeat, but it was a look of, holy crap, how the hell are we going to get around this one? We can't do anything right. How are we going to pull this one out? They were lost.
And, I mean, 12. We were up 12. I think Uzan had a shot, and it was in and out. I mean, we were almost up 14. We were that close to being up 14. And then they went down and did their thing, and it was kind of a different game after that. But even the goaltending was even more painful because we would have been up 8 at that point, and Florida would have come down. If they miss, there's a very good chance we get up, and we're up 10 at halftime. Totally different game than 3. And instead, they go down and hit a 3, and all of a sudden it's a 3-point game. And I think that's the difference right there. And yeah, you win as a team, you lose as a team. The coaching, for sure, there was mistakes. Like, why were we shooting free throws when we're a great offensive rebounding team? Why are we shooting free throws and have nobody, around the basket to rebound? Why do we pull all the guys off?
I didn't understand that as well, especially when you have, two of your, worst free throw shooters at the line in some critical points of the game, like Tugler and Juwan Roberts. Give yourself an opportunity. As good and physical as you are around the basket, I don't understand that myself. I don't understand why you're not giving yourself a chance for a second chance opportunity, especially with a 46% free throw shooter at the line in Tugler tonight. Or Roberts, who is, I don't know what his season percentages are, but if you've watched the games here recently, it's about 50-50. That's what it feels like. Appreciate the phone call, Prince. Thanks, man, for being up with us. 713-572-4610, 572-4610, if you want to give us a shout. Coming up next, we'll let you hear a little bit from University of Houston head coach Kelvin Sampson, his reaction after this one. That's next on the H-Town postgame show.
Playoff basketball. 45 with Bijani and Creighton is proudly presented by Viking Carpet One Floor and Home Outlet. Call or text 281-907-6444 for all of your flooring needs. Sports Radio 610 presents Area 45 with Bijani and Creighton.
Area 45, back with you. Sean Bijani, Patrick Creighton, calling in for Chris tonight. 713-572-4610, 572-4610. You can call or text the Jim Adler Texas Hammer text line. Shout out to Kelvin Sampson. Not only to win post game, but doing TV post game, and then making himself available for the media scrum afterwards with Randy McElvoy at KPRC Local 2. We're about to hear from him and other members of the media with Kelvin Sampson after this ball game ended. Now I guess almost 2 hours ago. And it also shout out to Juwan Roberts. Maybe there's others, but he's the only player that I've seen talk to a member of the media. There were others not unwilling to talk to the media, but unable to talk to the media because
Will Kunkel had tweeted that out.
They were so heartbroken, and Kelvin Sampson even made mention of it, and you might hear it here in this piece of audio that we're about to play, but he said something to the effect like, all the guys in the locker room are crying. Freshmen that were on the bench that didn't play haven't sniffed a minute in a game in a long time, maybe all season, in their wailing, he said. And he's like, that's how I know I'm recruiting the right kids, because I don't want a player that's not going to cry after a loss like this. That's how I know I'm recruiting the right kids. That was from Kelvin Sampson per Chris Baldwin of Paper City
Mag. They care. They have a lot of GAF in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's Kelvin Sampson. Nobody has cared more about this program than him the last 11 years that he has built it. And here's his reaction and explanation, the final few minutes, and his thoughts after a 65-63 loss in the title game.
That doesn't mean we were going to win in this game if we hold Duke under 70. And I felt the same way about Florida. I can't remember what all the stats were. Clayton and Martin were 5 for 20. That's credit to our defense. Those guys are elite guards. Those are their two best guards. Now, Richards got away from us a little bit in the first half with some threes. And then they got to the free throw line a little bit too much in the second half. But our defense was stout all night. That team scored 65. Our offense was not as good as in areas that we've been good at. Like we've got more production throwing the ball inside, especially the J1. And everybody's got size in our league. Florida. I think the Condon kids, 6'11". Juan's been scoring over 7-foot guys all year. He missed some shots normally he makes. They did a good job of chasing LJ off the three-point line and forcing him to drive. But, those shots didn't bother me that he was getting the floaters on the baseline because we've always done a great job offensive rebounding them. The last offensive rebound we had was Joe went and got it in the midst of we're in the process of throwing it out for a kick out, a dagger 3, and he brought it down and they stripped him. But credit Florida. When I called timeout there at the end with the score 65-63, I think there was 19 seconds left. We didn't need a 3. And I told Emmanuel. I thought Emmanuel, got some looks down the stretch. And one of the last things we told him was if they run at you, shot fake it, get the ball in the paint, and give us a chance to get an offensive rebound. And obviously he must have thought he could get the shot off. And but that's what happens.
The locker room was closed for a long time, understandably.
And that's it from Kelvin Sampson. Randy McElvoy, other members of the media with Sampson there. audio courtesy of Randy McElroy, KPRC. Local 2, Sampson, what are you going to do? He just broke everything down for you. The last few moments of the ball game, and there's no way you can explain this one logically. It's one of those things. You're going to have to watch it again, and you're going to watch it again, PC, and it's not going to make any sense to you. It's just that's the way the ball is bounced tonight, and I hate context and I hate having something to compare this to. I hate the fact that it was 42 years ago, but that's what makes it sting even more. It's a program that has been so close. What's the stat? Houston is the first school to have 6 Final Four appearances without a national championship to their name. Is it going to be number 7? That's the one that takes you to the mountaintop. I don't know. We had a conversation coming into this game, like if the Cougs win or if they lose. We asked Joseph Duarte the other day, like, hey man, Kelvin Sampson's not getting younger. He's like the rest of us. He's getting older. He's 69 years old. Is he going to be back next year? And how much longer can the University of Houston sustain like this level of competitiveness that they have created? And this is not like a one-off. This is back-to-back Big 12 championships. This is really the impetus of what I feel like is the start of a real program, because I don't know if you caught this, but Kelvin Sampson threw massive amount of shade at the American Conference the other day.
Toy Poodle Conference.
Fantastic analogy, by the way. He's he's really good at that, and dropped one with the sideline reporter. Who's that? What's that lady's name that was doing the sidelines that we found very annoying tonight?
Tracy Wolfson?
Tracy Wolfson, yes. Very annoying.
Shudeth Upson?
She was giving absolutely zero broadcast.
And there was one part where, I think it was the first half, she talks for like a minute and a half, just saying nothing. And the game is going on, and things are happening, and there's like a foul call, and there's a basket, and we don't have an actual call or know who's got the foul or whatnot, because Tracy would shut the hell up.
I bet Ian Eagle was like, okay, let's get it on.
He goes, this is Sampson. At one point in the game, he goes, this isn't the middle of January against Sasquatch State.
I heard that they're getting invited to the Pac-12.
Oh, who, Sasquatch State? Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that Alabama plays them like week 1 in football.
It's just, you got to laugh a little bit. That was funny right there, man. Sampson's a ball.
I kind of want to ask you, Sean, despite this loss tonight, the one thing you cannot undermine, though, is the impact since that Kelvin Sampson has had on not just University of Houston basketball, but University of Houston itself, bringing that culture, bringing that impact back. There's that
bringing
video
that money.
Yeah, and that that video of him going, on campus saying like, "Hey, come to our basketball game. Come to our basketball game."
Yeah.
That was back in 2016, and it's just, in my opinion, from a person that did not graduate from there. I graduated from Sam Houston. I'm not going to claim Houston Cougars by any means because I didn't graduate from there.
There's room on the bandwagon.
I'm off the bandwagon tonight.
Room for you on the bandwagon.
But Sean, just what has your perspective been like since Kelvin Sampson moved age, despite what happened tonight? Just his impact overall.
I mean, it's been awesome. There's no discounting that. What Kelvin Sampson became is what we all thought Tom Penders was going to be. And it wasn't close. And Sampson put it best the other day in the video or the audio rather that we played from Joseph Duarte. And we had Joseph on, and he went through the whole thing again, the interaction, like the speech earlier this week, Monday or Tuesday it was. What is today? It was last Monday or Tuesday. Just talking about like what it was from when he got there to what it has become now. Like, they didn't have facilities. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have any of the amenities that Sampson, not begged for, but demanded that they get. If you want this program to go from the Toy Poodle League in the American Conference to competing regularly to, with the Big 12. And that was always the hope. Like, U of H was not content going from CUSA to the American Conference. Like, I was pumped up about that because I liked a lot of the schools that were in there from a basketball standpoint. Not so much a football standpoint, but, and you felt like you were out of purgatory, in CUSA. And you knew ultimately, like, boy, you got to get to the Big 12. It's the only one that makes sense. You got to get there. That was always the hope. And, Penders was never given a chance in hell. There was no money. There was no care. And I don't know what it was. I mean, it's not just Sampson. It was Tillman was, athletic directors that actually cared. It was a president that actually cared about winning. When Rena Couture came in and started talking about a top tier 1 university, nobody knew what the hell that meant around here. Nobody knew what that meant. It sounded good. It sounded different. It sounded better than what we were when I was in school there. But nobody understood what that was.
I thought it was interesting that in Kelvin's comments when he was talking about, Tillman and investing in the program, and Rena Couture being somebody where athletics mattered, and Hunter Yurachek being somebody who was an important part as then the SID and the AD. He was the athletic director at the time. When they really started making these big steps forward, he did not say Chris Pesman.
Mm-hmm.
He did not mention the current AD, but he mentioned Hunter Yurachek multiple times.
Sure did. And he said whenever he comes back in 10 years, Hunter Yurachek in those conversations is going to be the first thing that he thinks of. That's how impactful and how close they work together. That's huge. And, back in the day, like Dave Maggard was that guy. He was a really good athletic director for what U of H needed at the time. It's just Sampson has made the athletic program what a lot of athletic programs at various universities around the country are via football. And it has been basketball. The basketball program has put that entire athletic program on its back. And it would just hopefully, in the soon, Fritz, come on, football carries a little bit of the load. But it's been really cool. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Look, the loss sucks. It's heartbreaking. It's one of the worst ways you could imagine losing. What's worse? Throwing the ball away, like airmailing a pass, like you're at the top of the key, airmailing a pass to somebody wide open in the corner and turning the ball over as the buzzer sounds, dribbling a ball off your foot out of bounds as the buzzer sounds. What's worse? Not even getting a shot off. Not even getting a shot off. What's worse, what makes this one hurt is if you ask Sampson, who would you rather have the basketball in the hands of in that moment? Probably doesn't say anybody else besides Sharp. Says, I want the ball in Sharp's hands. Who's come up big countless times just in the last couple of weeks in the tournament? Big moments in the game. Sharp. Not who led the team in scoring. That's been Cryer a lot of the times. Who's come up with some big plays, big shots, big hustle plays, rebounds, tip-ins, three-pointers from like 28 feet. Sharp. And he said it himself in the cuts we just played. Don't have a problem with him taking that shot. Call timeout 30 seconds. If you got the shot, you feel comfortable with it, boom, go. That's the confidence that he has to have in his players to perform on a big stage. That's the confidence that the players have in themselves to perform on a big stage. And Sharp, in that instance, got scared as hell, intimidated as hell with the guy just jumping up 5 feet in the air to block his shot. And he came down with it, and you can't do that. It's just, it was one of those perfect storm moments. 713-572-4610. Let's get out to Chris on Area 45. What's up, Chris?
Hey, I was over there this weekend, San Antonio. Actually, that's my hometown, but now I live in Katy, right here on Morton Ranch 99. But I got to say, the one fans that did go, they represented really well. I was just kind of disappointed for the fourth largest city in the country. There wasn't more Houston fans because Duke really outnumbered on Saturday night. And then tonight, it just really looked like Florida brought more. What do you think it is that Houston doesn't travel? I was like, it's kind of sad.
No, Duke is a national brand. Florida's a national brand. Auburn's a national brand. Tennessee's a national brand. Like all of Kentucky, all of these schools have larger followings. And, San Antonio being a hop, skip, and a jump, away from Houston, I honestly thought, like, the TV copy, I thought Houston showed really well. It looked like, for me, like half court, all the way behind their basket was, a lot of red.
Yeah, they didn't. I was there doing it live. I was doing Uber over the weekend. It's just go Cougars. I give all the credit to where they got there for Sampson. I think they just ran out of gas. You look at the stats. They got out rebounded, outshot, out free throwed, out rebounded. But I think they just ran out of gas. They did as much as they could with what the players they had. I think Sampson, he's got carte blanche wherever he wants to go with us. I bought in. I'm fully in. Go Cougs. I just wish Houston would travel better and support better. I don't know what it is about. It's just different mindset. I mean, San Antonio, where I was born and raised, they die and live for Spurs. Here, it's kind of like, I guess there's so much stuff going on. I'll just trying to get your feedback.
No,
I was just hoping Houston would travel better.
I'm with you, Chris. I'm with you, but PC, help me make this. Tell me if this makes any sense. Like, we want it to be bigger than I think it can be right now. Well, the fan base from a optics standpoint and what you're wanting to compare University of Houston fans to like Duke or Florida or Kentucky or any other big basketball school, Texas, whatever, LSU, it's just not going to be that way. The talent's that way, the program's that way, the team's that way. The opportunity to win a national championship this year is that way, but the fan base is just not. And it's not because there aren't the fans are like fair weather and they don't care. It's just the school is it's commuter. It's a commuter school. It's very diverse. It's not a national brand. There aren't thousands upon thousands of University of Houston fans in podunk towns in Arkansas and in Tennessee and West Texas and all over the country. Are these other teams?
The program has been a top program for 7 years. Duke's been a top program for 40 plus.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Tennessee's been a top program for 40 plus. Florida's been a top program, at least going back to Billy Donovan years. So, like, all of those brands are bigger brands with longer track records than UH. And yeah, UH has been a commuter school for a long time. Even though, like, look, now they're in the Big 12. I think they're like an R1 research school now. Like, they've got more people living on campus now than they ever have.
Mm-hmm.
And they have continued to invest in making the school bigger and more of a school where they got more people living on campus. But these are new developments in UH, and the fact about Houston is there's still more people who went to A&M and more people who went to UT and probably more people who went to LSU than there are people who went to UH who identify with UH.
Sure.
And that's a challenge to the Cougars because even though they are University of Houston, there are certainly, when it comes to college sports, more fans of UT and more fans of A&M in this city than there are fans of the Cougs. And I hope that will change as the next generation of sports fans is coming up and they see what Kelvin Sampson has done with this basketball team, that they fall in love with the Cougar basketball team, leads them falling in love with other Cougar programs as well.
Sure, it's a build, and it's a really slow one when you're in the early stages of it. It could feel like a slog, but
I mean, I'm transient, right? I moved here from New York. I went to school in New York, and I didn't go to UH. I didn't go to UT. I didn't go to A&M. But look, I follow all of them, and it's certainly, a lot more fun when they do well than when they don't. Gives us something to talk about. So even if you're someone who moved here from another city and you don't have a tie to any one school, then you should root for all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got one final segment coming up next. We'll put a wrap on it. If you want to get a word in, 713-572-4610, you can at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's cool. Sean Bijani, Patrick Creighton, Colin. One more segment with you. Area 45 H-Town postgame show next.
Texans GM Nick Caserio joined Payne and Pendergast. Area 45 with Bish is presented by Viking Carpet One Floor and Home Outlet. Call or text 281-907-6444 for all of your flooring needs. Live from the Mokaram Injury Lawyers Studios, Sports Radio 610 presents Area 45 with Bijani and Creighton.
Cougs lose 65-63 to Florida tonight in the national championship game. Final segment, if you want to weigh in, talk about it. 713-572-4610. LJ Cryer leading all Cougs with 19 points in 37 minutes. No other Cougs scored more than 9, and that individual was Malik Wilson, who had himself a really good night in 19 minutes of action, but it was shot selection in the early going, it was turnovers, and it was the inability to get up any shots in the game's final 2:29, and what really hurt, not even give you a chance, the inability to get a shot up in the final few seconds. A turnover instead from Emmanuel Sharp. That cost the Cougs the game tonight.
You want some interesting stats on the Cougs season?
Yep.
They are the first team in D1 history to play over 40 games in a season and not lose a single game by more than 5 points.
Whoa.
It's impressive.
Here's the other really crazy stat. Over the last 25 years, there have been 859 instances of a D1 team trailing by 5+ points at the half at least 5 times in a single season. Only one of those teams came back to win every single game, and that was this year's Cougs. They were 5-0.
After trailing
by 5 or more at half. At least 5 times in a season. They trailed by at 5 or more at the half 5 times this year and came back to win every game.
It's impressive.
See, they should have just been trailing at half and then everything would have been fine.
There's the kicker right there.
Right. Yeah.
It's funny because at the halftime, Sean says to me, I'd feel better if they were down by a little bit instead of up by a little bit. And I looked at him like, what? And you're like, yeah, because when they're down by a little bit, they seem to have a little more juice when they come out.
Well, I told you, because they were down by 6 the other day against Duke, Saturday. And I told you, because they were up by 3 today. And I said, I feel less fortunate being up 3 tonight than I did about the Cougs being down by 6 on Saturday. I felt less fortunate. I felt like tonight, them being up by 3, they earned that. They earned that. Like that, there was no favors given to them to get them that 3-point lead. I felt like they very well 16 against Duke because they'd shot the ball so poorly. They'd moved the ball so poorly. Their shot selection was not good. And that's really what it boiled down to for me. It wasn't turnovers. It wasn't, a lack of defensive effort. It wasn't being outcoached. It was, you were down by 6, but damn, you could be down by 16. If Duke gets a couple of shots, maybe picks the momentum up, like this could be, the complexion of the ball game could have changed. Whereas tonight, the complexion of the ball game, my goodness, the Cougs very well could have been up by 13 at half, or they could have been down by 13 at the half. It's, if Florida makes a couple of those ridiculous threes that they were taking, if Florida continues to milk Condon in the lane as they should have, early, or if the Cougs, by the same token, get some of those threes that went down and came right back out from Cryer and Sharp. If Roberts, my gosh, he was 1 for 6 at halftime, and all 6 of those shot attempts came within like 4 feet of the basket. He made 1, and it was a little dipsy-do, kind of rolled around the rim, and then fell in shot. He missed so many point-blank shots. Not just tonight, but against Duke as well. It could have gone either way. But the Cougs being up by 3 and a halftime lead, that is what you want. In a national title game, that's what you want. You want the advantage. They had the advantage. They grew the advantage to 12. And I do feel like the referees stifled the momentum. I also believe that the Cougs fell victim to that, and they shot themselves in the foot thereafter. You've got to be able to, rise above, and they committed some legitimate fouls. Many more of the fouls that were called on them, the 12 fouls, the 11 fouls that were called on them, I'd say more than half of those, they were legitimate fouls. But you have to be able to do something to counteract that on the offensive end. Their offense, or lack thereof, lost them this game tonight. Their turnovers late, after only having 4 through, 35 minutes of the game, lost them the game tonight. Their inability to even get a shot up in a critical moment or critical moments of the game lost them the game tonight. Those are things that national championship winning teams don't do. I'll take it home. 2 minutes. We got 2 minutes. You don't want to say anything else? You agree, disagree?
12:54. We're out. And you know me. There are very few things that I can say in 2 minutes. I do think that 9.5-minute stretch where they were called for a foul every single possession really took a mental toll on them. Mm-hmm. It allowed a struggling Florida team to suddenly get confidence. Their inability to execute offensively for the last 3 minutes of the game ended them.
Yep. All right, we'll figure out what we're going to talk about that's happy tomorrow. Maybe the Astros will win.
They lost tonight.
I said tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Tomorrow is technically today. So.
Well, then they didn't lose today yet either. All right, that's Colin.
A.K.A. Will.
A.K.A. Will. He is Patrick Creighton. I'm Sean Bijani. Have a great morning, everybody.
H-Town!
What's been Nick Casario's biggest problem?